listening to Your Money, Your Purpose, the podcast where money meets meaning. Hosted by financial advisors Billy Zarello and Brian Eckert, this isn't your typical advisor podcast. Around here, we don't just talk spreadsheets and strategy, we talk stories, behavior, beliefs, and the emotional side of building real wealth. Each week, Billy and Brian take turns diving into either the technical side of money, like investing, tax strategy, and planning, or the behavioral side, like money patterns, mindset, and emotional clarity. Along the way, they'll be joined by expert guests who bring fresh insight to both. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, and the views shared are those of the hosts and guests, not necessarily those of their firms. Let's get into today's episode.
All right, everybody. It is another episode of Your Money, Your Purpose podcast. And we have a very special guest today I'm very excited about. Faith, how are you doing? But before we get into that, right, how you're doing, just anybody that's going to be watching this, make sure you like, subscribe, all the good things. But yes, we have a special guest. Her name is Faith Morris. It's funny. We were just talking about it. We met on LinkedIn. We had a meeting. We jived, and I was like, "Hey, you'd be a great guest for the podcast." And then that was a couple of weeks ago, and here we are. And so, Faith, thank you for joining today. How are you doing?
So good. I'm so excited to be here. So excited. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And we had such a good conversation, and I was like, "This is going to be an awesome podcast guest." What I love about your style is that you're just upfront, and I love that. And so, and if you don't follow, and I'm in the show notes, there'll be ways to find you, but definitely go follow her content. It's really good. So you'll have a good, you get a good chuckle. Sometimes you'll be challenged sometimes, and a little bit of everything in between. But anyways, let's get into today's podcast, right? So Faith, for a lot of our listeners, they don't know who you are. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah. So my name is Faith Morris, and I am an operations strategist for organized psychopath entrepreneurs with small teams. I'm really passionate about helping multi-priority entrepreneurs build the infrastructures of their business that allows them to get everything that's going on out of their head on paper and in their business.
I love that, because that is not what I'm good at. I'm a dreamer. I'm up in the clouds, and it's funny. Like, yeah. So we all need that person to bring us back down and be like, "Hey, this is a great vision you have, but like we got to figure out like the plumbing, right? We got to put that in and see." Get those things working. And so
yes, you're a visionary.
Yes. So how did you start your business? How did you get into business? Like, what was like, you're like, all right, I gotta do this. This is something that's needed.
Well, just for the record, being an entrepreneur was never part of my plan. It's actually my worst nightmare. Truly my worst nightmare. I'm a very risk adverse person, which I'm sure we'll get into when we talk a little bit more about my money style. But I moved back. I was living in Australia for 8 years. I spent 8 years in aged care and disability coordination. I moved back to the US about 2 years ago with my family. And the plan was for me to get a corporate job, integrate back into, corporate America, and help my husband get his masonry business on the go. And essentially I got absolutely destroyed by the traditional job market. And I really ended up becoming the full COO of our family masonry business and completely leading charge in everything that wasn't physically building with stone. And I realized, okay, one, I'm so drained from job hunting. This is not for me. It was very hard to find a job in the US that fits the values that I really wanted for myself and my family. And I just was getting rejected. And when I made the call to stop traditional job hunting, I kind of entered the freelance world. I did a little bit of Pinterest virtual assistant. But again, while this was all going on, I was building our masonry business back end, right? I understood what I was doing and the hustle that I was putting into all this work to build. I mean, we had nothing, right? We didn't know anybody. We're building a business, a local business completely from scratch. And what I found was, oh my gosh, we were booked out for 9 months straight. We had leads coming in. We were booked about every 2 to 3 weeks. We were like, that was kind of our buffer, which I thought was amazing. And so I realized, wow, I am really good at this. I'm really, really good at understanding the pieces of the puzzle of the infrastructure that is needed for a successful business, and especially in the construction industry, where, oh my gosh, just the fact that we put in effort to create a website. We did a little bit of an SEO boost. I was very intentional about asking for Google reviews. We had a client experience. We have a client experience that is unmatched operationally, in my opinion, to what else is happening in our, Monmouth County, New Jersey. And so I knew I was really good at it. And the only thing that was missing was taking a chance on myself fully by branding myself, starting my web, like really putting myself out there. At this time, I was really working for 2 different agency owners very fluidly. And I knew I kind of hit my rock bottom in the fall, where I realized I wasn't happy. I wasn't getting paid what I knew I was worth. But I also knew I was part of the problem, because I didn't have a personal brand. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything else besides like, Faith's really good at this. And so I spent time with a copywriter, even just like figuring out my title, right? Like, I'm not a chief of staff. I'm not an executive assistant. I don't want to call myself an operations manager. I'm not a VA. And so we came up with this title, remote ops partner, and I launched my business in January. And oh my God, my life has changed since then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So a lot of our listeners, well, obviously, that I work with a lot of women entrepreneurs, and overwhelm is like probably the number one answer that you hear from business owners, right? But like, I want to hear from your perspective, because like you made that jump, like you said, you're like, hey, I'm making this jump. What was that like for somebody that might be listening, like, hey, I'm going to do that. But like, what were some of the things that came up in your own mind? Because like, I feel like you're so like, it's weird. Like it's easy for us to help other people, but it's sometimes not as easy to help ourselves. Right. And we're like, I know what I should be doing. Right. I know operationally in my mind what I should be doing, but I just can't. There's a disconnect.
And honestly, and it's funny because this is obviously a money podcast, but genuinely, the lack of security and already financially, and again, just to paint a picture, we are not in a normal situation. We financially had prepared to transition to the US. We had saved up money for that. And the plan was spend the summer, take 4 months off, and then actually I'll start work in September. I'll financially get us on our feet. And that just completely didn't happen. And so when I made that decision of like, okay, I'm done traditional, it was almost like I was saying, I am going to accept. And I kid you not, the date was like March 7th or something. I said, okay, we are going to be pretty poor this year. Like I was like, I just have to accept that is my reality, and that's okay for the long-term ROI that I can see coming.
Yep.
And it's just a sacrifice we have to make. And by the way, just for everyone who's listening, like I am not a big spender. My husband and I are really great with money. Like I'm not out there going to like Anthropologie and Zara every other day. That's not we travel a lot. We spend our money on travel and experiences genuinely more than like things. But that was really, really hard. And so the anxiety of the scarcity of the what if stability money conversation, that's what got me more than the overwhelm. It was more because I already knew the very simple steps I had to take to make it happen versus, oh my God, where and when is the money coming in? But I also knew if I don't do this, I will never know. I have to know. And if it all goes to shit, okay, the only thing I've lost is about $800 I spent to make my website and a slice of my pride. And like I had already lost all my pride at that point. Seriously, like I've been rejected. Like I was already done. So I was like, okay, I have to know, and I have to do it. But I just also have to accept the fact that like we are going to be poor for a while. We're like on one income. I have 2 kids. I have 2 under 2 that are in daycare. Like it's a fortune in the US, right? And so like 2 entrepreneur. I mean, the whole situation is comical to look back on. Of like truly my worst nightmare is somebody who's very money conscious. Money like I'm not in the relationship. My husband is not.
I was going to ask, so what's the, like for me and
Yes.
the dynamic that I have in my relationship with my wife, I'm more on your level, right? Very conscious about where that makes sense, right? I'm a financial advisor. That kind of makes sense. But
Yeah.
the wife, right, and is very like, hey, it's not like she's going out and spending money on everything, but it like the value of money to her is very different, just because
Very.
of the past that I grew up with. My parents got divorced. Her parents had are still married for like 38 years, have a great marriage, right? And so it makes sense why we have those visions. But like, what was that like? Going into business for yourself, the conversations, because it can, I've been there. I think a lot of people that are going to be listening today would be like, yeah, I'm there, or I've been there and got the t-shirt.
Yeah. I mean, I will just preface this by saying my husband is Australian. Okay. So you have to understand, like,
that's a whole nother
Australian,
dynamic.
it's a whole other, no, it really, really is culturally. Right. And I always say and he is the most supportive, incredible partner I could have ever asked God to bless me with, like, honestly, but I always laugh is like, anytime I have anxiety or work, like, she'll be right, mate. She'll be right. And I'm like, she won't be all right though. Okay. She won't be all right. He's like, she'll be right. He always supported, never doubted. He genuinely is somebody always like, everything is going to work out. It's going to be okay. And, I'm definitely the one that's probably leading more of the conversations of like, hey, we need to have a check-in, like, this is where we're at, or hey, we both really want to do this, we actually can't. And honestly, I really attribute our partnership with money to be the reason we were able to, one, pay off the debt that he had when we met, which was about $36,000 very quickly. We were able to save thousands. Like when we got engaged, we had spent like 20 something thousands of dollars on plane flights and visas. We saved up 90 grand to transition to the US. Like we had done all these things together over time that I knew this flip in the road. He knew, right? Yeah. That like, but for me, it's just this innate constant nag of I'm worried. And like for the first time in our life as a couple, we were living well below our means. Like this was the first time as a couple, we were like, I don't say broke, but we were living very, very tight. We had never done that before. And I would say, and we bought a house and like, and I would say right now, like my house is nowhere near furnished, the way I want it to be. But again, it's a season, we're in building, but it sucks, right? Like it sucks that I can't just like go to Target or Pottery Barn and like pick out a cute throw cushion. But I just can't because I'm putting money back into my business and da-da-da-da. And so we're really on the same page about that, which I attribute to a lot of our success and lack of like, fighting or issues, because I know that comes up a lot with couples, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it's a major issue. And what it sounds like to me is that you have a shared vision, right? And you have proof of concept, like, hey, we've done XYZ. So we can prove to ourselves, we prove to ourselves that we're good with money. It's just like you said, and I think that's what people have to realize. It's like starting your own business is like, it's not all glamorous. It's not like you make one post and all of a sudden you're flooded with clients and stuff like that. It's lean. It's living lean, and it's living lean for a short period of time.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. I just got off a call with someone earlier, just having this conversation around investments, right? Where, especially now that I'm in this world and I've seen what's kind of happened to me the last 5 months around the investments I made, and why I'm really, really passionate about understanding when is the right time to spend, who is the right person to spend with, so that you can make more money, right? And I think about, I made 2 really big investments in Q1 with a messaging coach for $4,500 and with an offer strategy group program for $1,200. I have made my money back 3 or 4 times each on that. Like, it's just insane. But that's a mindset thing. Like, people, I would say, especially beginning entrepreneurs, and I get it. It is so scary to spend money. Like, I'd be lying to you if I did not cry. If I tell you I didn't cry, like, many times. I cried a lot, and I still cry sometimes, right? But because I want to move at a much faster pace than what is realistic, right? And so when I think about an example, the infrastructure we put for our masonry business last year, And from a marketing perspective, like I was on Nextdoor app, Facebook, doing the most because I had to. This year, what we invested in for SEO, which was very minimal, but we did all these other things. We are now booked 4 months ahead, right? Long-term ROI. I haven't seen it. I have no interest in being in a Facebook group or a Nextdoor app. Referrals are a cherry on top. Like that's genuinely, but I knew that investment short-term was going to be able to put us in a position long-term, right? These small building blocks I'm doing for my business now, I said to myself, I swear, I don't care about money this year because I am setting myself up to make a fuck ton of money in 2026.
I love it. Yeah.
And I will, right? Like I literally will but it's because you want to rush and you want it just to happen. And it's all a lie. Like it's all a lie that this stuff like happens overnight or whatever. And like, you do have to live really lean, which like, I don't really live a lavish lifestyle and I still feel very tight.
Yeah.
And it's really uncomfortable. And I would be lying if I didn't say that wasn't uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is. It is. But when you have a partner that you're going through it with that understands the vision,
totally.
It's a lot like those uncomfortable moments aren't as uncomfortable when that partner is looking at you and like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Where's the money coming in? How are you going to pay for this? Right. And but I was thinking about it when you were just talking about, I thought it was very funny that you were like, I want to go fast. But then when I think about what you do on the operational side, you're like telling people like, you can't go fast because you don't have anything in place. So it's like, it's interesting to see your own dynamic and go back to that thought, the original thought that we had was like, we know what to do for other people, but we sometimes don't know what to do for our own selves. And so it's like
totally having
that conversation with yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the greatest gifts that we were given, we had it at one point, we had a personal, almost like a personal CFO for quite a bit of time, especially while we were transitioning from Australia to the US. And he said, Brett is my husband, when Faith gets into these like flurries of anxiety and crying, like spiraling, you need to have her email me. I will get on a call with her. Like, I know what's going on. You need, and that really became our lifeline, an kind of biased person who was really ahead of what was going on and that I could spiral with, which I'm sure you end up in that category as well of like, what's a safe place outside of that partner who already feels really secure in things, but needs somebody else, needs the other partner needs to go, spiral with somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine, because I think about my own business, but I think about you as like, like when somebody's coming to you, they're probably feeling pretty overwhelmed, right? They're probably feeling just like, I have all this stuff. I don't know what it does. Like in theory, like I've just created things and now I don't know how they connect. And like, when you're sitting there, even though your husband is, running the masonry business, like doing the masonry and stuff like that. Right. It's like, but this is your baby, right? Like this is your thing, right? And it's like, I can talk about it I talk about my business with my wife, but like when I want to vent about my business and she's looking for solutions, I'm like, I don't need that right now. I just need to vent, right?
Yeah.
And but then like you said, having a person like you that I could go to and be like, hey, shit's hitting the fan. Like I just got a ton of clients to come through and I thought my system was really good and it's really not. So it's like, that's interesting dynamic, especially you both being business owners.
And like very different business owners, right? There's a dynamic of we own a business together, right? But we own a construction local business. And then have this like, it's funny because I always talk about online. I have these like two worlds and some people don't know about my two worlds because then I have this like whole online world, which like, again, love my husband to pieces. He's got he knows what's going on, but he does not know what's going on, right? Like it is a very, very different world for him than like doing masonry. But like he goes to work, he's building the stones, all this kind of stuff, whatever. But like it is hysterical because and also like I have a different like business bank account and like just again like I was talking to him like revenue mapping the other day and he was just like I have no idea. We're part of this online community. Like the online space is so different. And it's just, but it's very, very funny because he tries to understand, right? Like he's trying to understand, but he's like, I don't like, what is Threads? Or like, what's that LinkedIn? Who's that person? Like, he just hears me voice memoing all day. So funny.
That's amazing.
Like,
Bliss, right? Just bliss. He just like, hey, I'm just moving through this, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Interesting question, because you kind of alluded to it, especially because of you and your husband being, from different places, right? You being from the US, him being from Australia. Like when you were over there, like obviously America gets that, stigma of like very materialistic, spending money, like I got to keep up with the Joneses and stuff like that. What was it like in Australia? Like what was the vibe like over there when it came to, just money in general? Was it different, same? Like what was that like?
So yeah, that's a really great question. So again, just to preface, I was on the West Coast. So like Perth on the West Coast is where my husband's from. That's where I lived for 8 years. The West Coast is genuinely a trade city. It is not a Sydney or a Melbourne. It's like one big beach town.
Okay.
So a majority of our friends didn't go to college. They're all in trade. The mining, WA is big for mining. So we have a lot of friends that do fly in, fly out. And I just have to say that because obviously Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, all that, like Brisbane has become a really big happening kind of business center of Australia. But for me and my experience with people from Western Australia who, are very low key, relax and go with the flow, where I found the difference is that, again, consumerism in the US is unmatched. Like coming back, and I had not been home in 4 years when we got back. I was in reverse culture shock 100%, right? Like, I'm not going to lie. Yes, it is so nice to get Amazon in 2 hours. Like, there it's like a week, right? So the stores close at 5 p.m. But people are not driven. I did not find, again, where I was living, this like over consumerism craze. Like it just did, because it's also an island. It doesn't even have it has less people as a country than like New York City alone, right? And even from like a sustainability standpoint, Australia is years ahead, to the US. And again, where I found a lot of my friends or people spend their money on travel and on experiences more than actual stuff. Like that was, if you travel anywhere in the world, I will personally Venmo you $100 if you go and you don't find somebody who like an Aussie in where you are. Australians are everywhere. They're everywhere, and they travel a lot. Almost, if not all of our friends, like traveled after they graduated high school, went to Europe for 2 years because you get a working visa. I never felt, and like full transparency, like we had decent wages over there. I think 120-ish. I was on around 90, and like we lived a really great, comfortable life. Like we didn't need a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously the cost of living, fluctuates, but it was never this like insane focal point of conversation with friends, right? Like it just wasn't. And Australia, like even from a mat leave perspective, a lot of my friends were part-time moms because the maternity leave and being a part-time parent, the government support, like there's just so many government supports I find for families there. Yeah, anyway, that's a bit of a waffle, but like all to say, definitely not anywhere compared to like the consumerism here. And that was a really hard adjustment for me coming back of like, whoa, everyone's talking about real estate and money. And it's like, I don't want to move at this pace because that's what everyone else is doing. Like, yes, money is so great. Duh, we love money. But it drives Americans like no tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. You're spot on with that. And it's interesting because it was just like you come back, it's culture shock. And then it's like, then you start your business, you're like, let's go. Like we got to get but it's not with the same goal in mind.
Correct. So I love that you said that because this is what we've developed. We've been here for 2 years now, right? And so we have really been evolving. We're still transitioning, and it's a lot of constant reflection. And the moment happened for me in May, and I talked about May, where, I mean, we realized it last year for our masonry business, but living in Australia, we had a cap of really what we felt we probably could make, very comfortable. There's a cap because of economically, right? You're on this island. Again, just there's a cap. It's hard to explain. Here, the opportunities to make money are endless. Okay. Yeah. So in May, specifically for my business, the switch happened. I was like, because I had made almost $12,000 in the month of May. And I don't say that to like, oh, I made $12,000.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, I can make so much money. And and I wasn't stressed and I wasn't burnt out. And I was like, but it all has to do with infrastructure and efficiency. But in the US, there is just no cap on the way that you can make money in the online space. That kind of drive in this world doesn't exist in my world in Perth. I would say like I'm connected to a really good friend named Jemmy, who's another entrepreneur in Brisbane. And like she is deep in and she's an American. She's deep in the Brisbane business entrepreneur world. And we're constantly talking because I'm going over there next year, like, hey, we want to do something. And I'm like, but this part of this world like doesn't exist for me in Perth, but it exists in Brisbane. Right. And so the different, places with different socioeconomic situations of entrepreneurs. But that switch was like, holy cow, you're right. If I was still living in Australia, if we had decided never to move back, no, I wouldn't have been in this space. And again, it's not all about like, oh, how much money I can make, but it's understanding like, wow, I have the opportunity to grow and to be challenged and to make the money that I want to make to be comfortable if I lay down the foundation for it.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a personal question. What would it, not too personal, but I'm going to ask this question because you brought it up, right? You talked about the trigger word that I hear a lot, right? Comfort, security, right? What does that mean to you? What does it mean for Faith to be comfortable? Like, because I talk to people all the time, right? That people that don't have a clear vision of where they want to go. And like, what would make you happy? Oh, if I just made $100,000 a year. Okay, we get to $100,000. It's like, well, what's going to make you happy now? Well, if I can get that to 120, it's like there's never an end, right? It's always the next number. It's always the next number. And so I'm just curious, like what is comfortable? What does comfortable feel like for Faith? Oh, I got you to pause for a second. That's
I'm thinking because right, it's not a number; it's more of a feeling. And I think a number, and I have talked about this online as well, of like you making $100,000 in Texas is very different than me making $100,000 in the Northeast. Okay.
Yes.
So like to me, numbers mean jack shit. And that's why I hate when people talk about 10K months and this and that. We're like, actually guys, like making $12,000 and like nothing in New Jersey, actually. Right. Like, when you have 2 kids in full-time daycare and all the things. But to answer your question, I want to live a life where I'm able to go. Number one, we are able to fly to Australia once a year. If I made enough money to pay my bills, food, buy a few new pieces of clothes seasonally, but to be able to live overseas in our second home once a year, check. The second would be, am I able to buy, this sounds so ridiculous, but again, I've been in this cycle of really like, go and update my wardrobe without thinking for pieces that I really want. Like I have never been a big spender. I don't need like a $70 white t-shirt, but I do think about it. That would be really, really big for me. And third would be, do we have enough money to take we love to like go camping and Airbnb for the weekend, do these little travel stints. Those are like the 3 things that kind of like, that would make me feel we're really good. That's all we want to do is like travel Australia, be able to buy like some clothes when we feel like it, and to like travel as a family throughout the year and have enough money to like pay our bills and like eat. For me, that number, like whatever. And obviously I have like I always want to have a certain amount of money in like a savings emergency fund. If there was like, I don't know, 40 or 50 grand just sitting there for emergencies.
Yeah.
That's what that to me, the number one. Yeah, those are the couple ones that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I love that because it's not, I was talking about this earlier today with somebody, and it's like it's not necessarily about, like you said, it's not necessarily about, oh, I'm going to buy this $70 shirt, but I have the power to do it, and it's a choice, right? It's no longer, oh, I can't do it because I don't have the money, or it's more like, hey, I have the money, and if I wanted to buy, I could. But I choose not to, right? And that's where I think a lot of people, they get so fixated, like you were saying, like the Americans right? We're Americans, but the Americans get so focused on the consumption, for my wife got me new golf shoes from Amazon and they were here in 2 hours, right? Like that's
Isn't it
ridiculous.
crazy? No, and then or like you order. I remember when we were jet lagged when we came back, and we were just like half asleep, and we ordered like toothpaste, like we couldn't even leave it, and like it came in a box that was like this big, and you're like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Like the wastage is just
So,
astronomical, right?
yeah. And so it's like the power, the choice, right? It's like, the choice like to like one day walk away from your career or what you've built and not have to be worried about anything, right? Like
correct. And like now that I think about it, as we're like in this therapy session, for the last, honestly, 11 or 12 years that my husband and I have been together, I have never once been in a place with that power, because we've always, kid you not, since we met, been paying for visas, plane flights, green cards, transitioning, starting businesses. Like we have never, I always say, like, very different than a lot of my friends where they dated in their 20s and they had like a relationship on dual income. Where like we didn't have that situation because we were immediately in this like business transaction relationship. And so I've never been in a position of, oh my God, I'll just like go and spend that or whatever. It's always been in the back of my head of like, okay, we're saving. Like we spent 2 years saving for our transition to come here. Yeah. That was always in the back of my head. So as we're talking, like, you're right, I actually have never once had that power of like not having even the smallest bit in the back of my head, which is really, again, our situation is very, very unique, but it has really impacted my relationship with money because of all the money we've had to spend to be together.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty interesting. It's a pretty powerful, revelation, so to speak. It's yeah. I mean, that's wow.
I know, we're both like, wow, that was, as you're talking, I was like, that's it. And it's really real. I mean, I'm serious. Like, it's just such an interesting thing to think about, the amount of years we've been like saving, having to pay for this, all because of just to be in a relationship together. Like, yeah. And we're still in it, right? Like until my husband gets his citizenship and until we fully, both get our businesses off the ground, which by the way, could take up to like 5 years, right? Like, yeah, it's going to be a little while, but I'm also now, I feel like that I'm in control of that rather than the government, right? Like that's, I think, a big shift that happened when May was realizing I'm in control of the money I can or won't make, and nobody else. Where like I had to save up money to transition. I had to pay the government. I had to pay for my school $10,000. I had to pay for this plane flight to see this boy. We had to pay off this debt. Where it's like, oh no, there's no have tos anymore besides the normal stuff.
I was just going to say that.
So I think that's also a driving factor for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're starting to realize, like you said, you're stepping into power rather than like instead of reacting, right? We're being proactive in those choices, and I think that's leading a lot of fuel to your business and your growth. Like you said, you're open. Like I think people don't realize that when they finally step into their power, like you said, I need to make an investment in my business. I need to invest in the messaging, right? It's this much money. I got to do it, right? I know I'm going to make money from it. But if you hadn't been that way, right? If you've still been in like, well, I have to do this. I have to invest in my business. It could have been a lot different. You could have gotten the same material, the same result, or the same product given to you, but it could have been completely different in how you used it and how you even thought about it. So I think that's a big shift.
Definitely. And I think it's evolving, right? I don't think it's one of those things that like happens overnight.
No, of course not.
I think it takes, time. But again, I do think whoever your partner is, and I'm sure this also happens when people, now I think we're seeing a big transition of women getting married later.
Yeah.
And so you really have two people coming in with, maybe different income, but that's just a whole other conversation of what are you bringing to the table? How much do you make? The combination, don't combine money, all those things. And I would say, I always say, oh, like the person you marry, right? Like those are big discussions, like almost as big as having kids, of like your relationship with money that affects, I mean, it could have broken us. I'd be lying to say it could have, very,
course,
very
yeah.
easily broken us very much. Like we had everything stacked against us from a, you know, logistical side. But, and I see how it happens. I see how it happens so quickly. And, you know, we combine all our money. We're in that. And again, that's a whole other thing. People, the way people combine money or don't combine money. And it's funny because my husband like does give me some shit sometimes because I have this like separate business account. And I'm
He's
like,
like,
yeah,
what's
but
in
like,
there?
he's like, what's in that account? It's like the secret account. And I'm like, it's not a secret account. I'm like doing owner's draw, paying ourselves, me, myself, and ours. It's just funny because we've never had separate accounts ever. But yeah, when I did my business, it was just anyway. He gives me shit for it sometimes because he has no access to it. He like literally can't see it, but not by like for any reason.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a whole nother rabbit hole of like
I know.
whether or not to you know, separate accounts and all those types of things. And I'm with you. Everything's together. I think, you know, for us, it always comes back to the like, hey, like we're a team, right? We're doing this together. Like you said, I think, you know, for a long time, when I first started my business, right, my wife was the breadwinner, right? She was making all the money, and you know that could have easily broken us, right? That could have easily been like a dynamic, you know, that, oh, you know, you're not man enough to go make money. It's like, no, like she's giving me the ability and the blessing to say, hey, go start your business, go do something that you really want to do, and now it's paying off. But like you said, in the short term, you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains.
Totally. And not everybody, you know, is willing to do that. And that's not a bad thing, but it's like definitely something you want to know before you get married, you know?
Yeah.
Because but I'm telling you, I wish I could say I know people who've like, you know, everyone has that conversation, but I know people who have not had that conversation and got married and been down that road because of something else that happened, right? And you're like, how did you not talk about that? Like, it's so strange, you know?
Yeah, I always thought it was strange too, and it's like you've never had that conversation. Like that's like you said, it's like, you know, it's right up there. Like, do you want to have kids? Like you're about to sign. People don't realize like getting married is signing a contract. It's like starting a business basically with two partners.
And I know, and then you have these like things that you have to keep alive. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's just like then it's just oh gosh, you can't get out of that one either. But that is, you know, that's a dynamic of financial, like raising children in America for working parents is psychotic.
Yeah, it is. It's you know, and then especially for women, I mean, you're asked to do so much.
It's crazy.
You're running your business, raising kids, you're doing all the things.
My sister in corporate America, I kid you not, the amount of times she told me, don't come back until the kids are at least 5. Like, don't do it. It's so expensive here. And in Australia, daycare is subsidized. I mean, they set you up for the most amazing success to like be a mom, you know? She was like, don't do it. Don't come back. Like seriously, until the kids are at least 5. And I was like, okay, but like, I miss you.
Yeah.
but I just think I'm a white privileged woman and and I'm like, and it is insane. Or I'm like, imagine other people from other socioeconomic backgrounds that don't have the resources or they care. Like that's why one person ends up being home, or why people don't have more than one kid and they don't have their second for a very long time. Like it's just crazy how much it dictates our life.
Not only that, but there's you know, couples that are not having kids at all for that reason, you know, because they're like, do I really want to bring a kid into this world? Like it would deal with all this stuff. And and so it touches, I think people just like, they look at their job and they look at their career and they just say, that's money. And that's just what I use to buy things. But that's why I like to talk what I talk about is because money touches everything corner of your life.
Everything. And it's funny, we were talking, my husband and I, sometime last week about like when am I, similar to what we're talking about, like when are we gonna feel that like, okay, like, you know? And I was like, honestly, Brett, like we had 202, right now they're 3 and 4. We have another like 2 full years of US daycare to pay, which just for everyone listening, about $25,000 a year to have 2 kids in full-time American daycare. Like that is a lot of money. Right. When I think about like an extra 25 grand in a year, I'm like, that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is it when, my youngest is in school, that we can finally exhale a bit. Because I
Yeah.
have to remember, sometimes I'm like, where the hell did the money go? Oh, into freaking daycare. Like, seriously. But I also work for my mental health. Like, I could never be a stay-at-home mom. If I'm breaking even, it's worth it for this period of my life because I love to work, and that isn't a life for me personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm a firm believer in this. Like, you have to do stuff for yourself in the form of self-care, because
Mm,
that's how you show up for other people. That's how you show up better for your kids. That's how you show up better for your husband, if you're doing the things that you love to do, but also taking care of yourself. And
totally.
like you said, if it's a wash, it's a wash. But if it keeps your sanity, like, it was worth it.
Totally. Totally. And that, you're right. And it's one of those, and it's my brother-in-law has a really good saying that we've kind of trickled down into my husband. He uses this phrase, and this is a good phrase if anybody listening who has a partner like this. Anytime I'm like worried about spending money, or like, okay, here's an example. Like, we're going on a holiday at the end of the week, and I want to get a few, like, I needed like to get some bathing suits, and I was like, actually, like, I don't need it. It's okay. And he was like, Faith, it's a fart in a hurricane. Like, it's a fart in a hurricane. It doesn't matter. Like, it's nothing. And you're
Yeah.
like, but then he'll use it for like really big purchases. Like, oh, our $7,000 shed. It's just a fart in a hurricane. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no. But that's a good reminder of, like, you're right. This is just like a short term, like, little fart in the hurricane. It's not the end of the world, and we need it. It's okay,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not feel bad about that.
I was thinking about that today too, because like I was, we both drink a lot of coffee, right? And so it was funny because like this morning, my wife was, sleeping in because she didn't have to be at work at that early, and I go to the gym very early, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy her a coffee. Went and bought her a coffee, and this coffee, I kid you not, I don't know. I can't remember how I remember her order, but I did. And I got the bill. It was like an $8.50 coffee. And I was like, holy hell. But then like that panic in me went, I was like, oh my God, that's almost $9 coffee. Like, what are we doing? Like, and then I
Oh
was like,
my
that's going to
God.
ruin us. And then I was like, it's a fart. It's a fart. It's a
Fart
fart
in
in
a
the
hurricane.
hurricane.
And it's funny. I feel like I've seen a lot of different posts about people that talk about, like, if coffee is important to you, or like, you know what I mean? Because so similar. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, we have an espresso machine, and that was when my husband was in debt. That was like one of the first things I was like, absolutely not. Like, you can't be like buying your lunch every day, and like paying $3 for, or $4 for coffee, like when you're like this much in debt. But it's true. Like, but if that also makes you happy, and you have the money to like do it. Like, sometimes listen, we have an espresso machine. I love it. But like, I've gotten like a cheeky little Venmo from somebody, and then I'm like, oh my God, it's free money. I'll just go get it at Starbucks just for
Yeah.
fun, so I don't have to make it because somebody else makes it. But I do sit here and I'm like, oh my God, there are people that buy $7 coffees every single day.
Yeah.
And I can't get over it. But I'm also like, they have the capital for it, and that's what they want to spend their money on. But I want to go to Greece. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. 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 I'm so jealous that you're getting to go to Greece. But that's another topic for another podcast. I want to shift gears because I do want to talk a little bit about what you do, right? I think it is important because people that are listening to this are like, hey, like, this is a great conversation, but like, obviously you have a business. We've talked about that. And so one of the things that I hear a lot from my business owner clients is, especially when we're starting off, right, is like, hey, I can do everything on my own, right? I don't need to hire anybody, right? But I feel like, and you've kind of pointed it out, and maybe you just want to talk from your standpoint, what you do, but there's a lot of hidden costs there, right? There's a lot of hidden, that's the best way to say it. There's a lot of hidden costs there. So like, if someone was saying that to you, what would you say to them?
So sorry, repeat the question. If they were saying what?
Like, if they were saying like, hey, like, I think I think it's easier just to do it all myself, right?
Okay.
I don't think there's any or any bad thing
I
for me
see.
just doing it by myself.
Okay. I see. I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, question one would be, like, that's great. You want to do it all yourself. Like, good for you. But if you do it all yourself, X, Y, and Z will happen. Or X, Y, and Z can't happen. Like, you have to understand that work. Like, my biggest goal when I'm talking to somebody is to help them understand how they can be more efficient, right? And that does not mean systems. It doesn't mean automations. It means building the right team for the right needs. And 9 out of 10 times when people are brain dumping to me and we're working through like, actually, what's the support that you need? It comes out in that, right? Of like, oh, no. This isn't about like what you maybe thought this was about. This is about something completely different, right? And it is really hard to see from inside the jar. And people that want to do everything by themselves, I always start by saying there will come a point where you have a cap on yourself, either by your mental health, you have a cap on the money you can make, because you can only do so much by yourself. If you are content with that lifestyle, when you get to that cap, that's freaking awesome. But if you want to evolve and grow, even small, you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. It's a very black and white, obvious discussion. And people know that, right? You can't grow and continue to grow without a team, or at least having other people maybe do what you're doing, or create other opportunities. But even that, who's executing it? The amount of people think it's the ideas, the lack of it's you suck at executing, and you don't know the right people to put in the right place to execute to get you where you want to go. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I talk to are very focused on the short-term ROI. And it is so frustrating, because I'm like, oh my God, if you just understood the long-term ROI, that's why people don't want to run Google, like, invest in SEO or blogging, because it takes time to index. Good things take time, right? And so while everybody wants to do, I don't know, people that want to do everything by themselves, yes, they're control freaks, and somehow I always get attracted to them. But they're always at a point of like, I'm tired, or like, I need some extra support. Like, they're always on that cusp, always. And where I come in to really kind of bring it all together is this isn't about like, you need this project management system. It's like, what do you need? What do you want for your life, first of all? Most entrepreneurs have no sense of what's in their vision. Like, I call it a visionary operating manual. What's my zone of genius? Where do I thrive? Where do I want to be in my business, like, long term? And let me tell you, that doesn't mean you have to step out, right? And I think a lot of people think that. No, if you want to have your hand in some of these pots, that's so great. No one's saying step all the way out. But it's more of like, I know, here's an example. I know for a fact I need somebody to come in to sort out all my funnels and my email marketing. Could I do it myself? 100%. Absolutely. Yep. But would I be good at it? Would it take me a million? My time is a commodity, and I want to hire an expert that I'm going to make back my money, because they know how to write sales emails, the right nurture sequence. So when people come to talk to me, I'm not interested in talking to people that are wishy-washy, which is why I say, I'm a strategist for organized psychopaths, because organized psychopaths, they are so organized, but they don't have enough hours in the day. And they have other roles in their life. They're moms, they're dads, they're brothers, they're a soccer coach, they're a volunteer at the soup kitchen. They help out at church on a Sunday. They have all these different roles that play a part in why they're so mentally time poor. Right?
I love that.
And my job is to come in and this is a really good discussion. I was working with somebody recently who, she's got 2 kids. They don't really sleep that well. She works a full-time job, and she's building her side business. Well, she can't work at night because the kids don't really sleep. She can't work in the morning because she's so tired. So we had to just like have a session where we just accepted, you cannot work during the week on your business, your side business. So you need to create time that on a Saturday where maybe your husband takes the kids for 2 hours, just take that time block. But you're in la la land trying to fit into this mold that doesn't fit into your life. Your life is a complete, indication of what's going to go on in your professional life. And my job is to see how that comes together and create help you create an efficient plan for that.
I think that is really important, because we all start our business not with the mindset that you have, right? We start with an idea, we start with a vision, a dream, a feeling, and we're like, all right, like I'm going to create
Yeah.
this thing and I'm going to see where it takes me. Right. And because I mean, we're not taught that, right? We're not taught how to start businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always make the joke, like I didn't get taught how to, manage money when I was in school. I got taught to learn to find the missing side of a triangle, right? Like that I'm never going to use. But anyways, but yeah, I think that's really important for people to hear is like, it's like you can be the dreamer, but you can also like, doesn't mean that you need to let go of your dream. You're still the one in control of it. You're just the person coming in that's like, all right, like, let's figure some stuff out. Let's figure this out.
And I mean, my passion, and especially the last 4 months and the people I've worked with, I realized when people come to meet with me or talk with me or inquire with me, I want them to leave that conversation and feel like, oh my God, I feel like I could trust her to challenge me. Because I come in to people's businesses and I do challenge. That's my job, to challenge the status quo, how this has always been done, right? Every one of your entrepreneur friends told you to hire a VA when you got overwhelmed, and you did. And then it ended up being a dumpster fire because you weren't ready for it. It's actually not the role you needed. You actually needed somebody to take over this marketing bit or whatever it is, right? And you don't even know that until you talk it out with somebody in my expertise, right? Who understands the kind of the spine of your business that has to be in place to build. But I realized that the people I have worked with, what they've appreciated most is that I'm a safe place. They're in a safe place to be challenged, right? Because any leader in leadership, you need to be challenged. Your ideas and especially in the changing landscape of the online space, like I want somebody to come in with fresh ideas, especially God, if we just talk about AI for a second, right? Like someone introduces me to a new tool. I'm like, yes, let me go stalk that. Let me go look at that, whatever, right? And if that's going to make me more efficient and my business more efficient. But I think 9 out of 10 times people they're actually in la la land about what they need. And they don't have anybody to soundboard with them to figure that out.
Yeah. And as entrepreneurs, we get into the solo, it feels like on an island, and we feel like we need to have all the answers, and you don't. And just another important point for anybody that's in business, that's starting their own business, is like, you don't have to do this all on your own.
Totally. And I would say, I would say a lot of people are really, really, really scared to spend the money. And it's not about spending the money to grow into this huge agency. It is scary. Listen, when $1,000 at the time that I was joining, I joined an online community for female founders at the very beginning of my business in January. Didn't really have $1,000 to be throwing around, to be honest. And I remember going to my husband and being like, I really want to do this. And he was like, do it. Of course, do it. And I was like, oh, anyway, but I knew this was a place where I wanted and needed to be. Has completely changed my life. And that investment was then just snowballed into I didn't even think twice at my my $4,500 messaging coach, private coach. I didn't even blink an eye because I knew I'd get the ROI back. I just knew after that was my confidence. But I get that it's, I want to acknowledge that it's really scary to spend $10, $1,000, or $10,000 if you don't feel like you have it. But I would really challenge you to spend time talking to your network. Please feel free to reach out to me. I feel like I'm like, whenever people in my circle of friends are hiring, I'm like, oh my God, please talk to me before you go hire. Ask me if I know anybody in my network, because vetting is really, really an important process of spending money on a person, on a service, or a thing, product.
Yep. I think that's a perfect place to kind of end today's show. I think, today was really impactful, not only just about hearing your story through entrepreneurship, but just understanding a little bit about what you do, how you help people, but just giving people the space to say, hey, I'm cool. I can, I can ask for that help. So I think I appreciate it. I think it was really impactful.
Oh my gosh. Thanks so much for having me. I hope, And please, if anybody wants to reach out or have any questions, I would love to support. And I'm always happy. I'm on LinkedIn, or I'm in the Instagram DMs. I don't really post on Instagram, but I'm on Threads and LinkedIn a lot. So if you find me there, I would love to chat.
Yeah, and we'll put it all in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. But yeah, go check out her content. I'm exclusively pretty much on LinkedIn by that that platform. But yeah, make sure you go check her out and check out her business. If you're in that space where you're like, yeah, I could probably use some help, I just don't know what. I think it's worth a call. I think it's worth a conversation. But again, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day away from, your business and all those things to share a little bit with us. And so, yeah, I was really excited about this. And so I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks so much, Billy.
Well, anyways, everybody, like I said, make sure to go check her out. We will see you next week for another episode. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning into Your Money, Your Purpose. We hope today's conversation gave you something real to think about. Just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions shared here are our own, or those of our guests, and don't necessarily reflect the views of the firms we work with. Nothing you hear on this show should be considered personal financial advice. Always talk with a qualified financial professional before making any decisions about your money. We're so glad you're here. Thanks again for listening.